What's up? So tonight, I have the task of, for 10 minutes, kind of letting you know why we're here. In the Christian Bible, in the Gospel according to Luke, chapter number 18, verses 1 through 8, there's a story about a persistent widow who refused to take the answer from an unjust judge. And she consistently went at him over and over again. And that scripture reads this way. One day Jesus told his disciples a story, showed them how you should always pray and never give up. There was a judge in a certain city who neither feared God nor cared about people. A widow of that city came to him repeatedly saying, "Give me justice in this dispute with my enemy." The judge ignored her for a while, but finally he said to himself, "I don't fear God or care about people, but this woman is driving me crazy. I'm going to see that she gets justice because she is wearing me out with her constant request." And tonight we're all here because we all care about a singular word and a singular purpose, and it's justice. I share this story because if you know anything about widows in the scriptural times, widows really had no power. A widow was a person whose husband had died, and really she had no one covering her. So she had no voice, she had no covering, she had no one really who took her seriously. But this widow refused to allow an unjust judge to not take her seriously. This widow refused to allow her voice not to be heard. This widow refused to allow her circumstances, no matter how dire they were, to be ignored because she knew something that this judge would later realize. And tonight, I want to say three things to you from the text that I lifted to you that I think is very important. The first lesson that we learn from this text is, number one, the power in prayer. It says that she consistently prayed and kept on praying. Luke 18, 1 through 8 is not even about the widow. It really is about the power of prayer. I'm the youngest of two boys. My mother raised us in the heart of Compton, California, with very minimal means. My mom didn't have a lot of money, she didn't have a lot of resources, but my mother always taught us is that prayer does work. There were times when we didn't have everybody else had. I was wearing my brother's clothes because he was older. We were having to borrow from our neighbors. We were having to go to the local convenience store and having to make money stretch because that's all we could do. But my mother believed that there was power in prayer, so there were times when she would pray that the God we believe in would stretch our resources. And we saw as we grew up that God did just that. So as I grew up and I left home in California to come to Tallahassee to go to FAMU, what my mother displayed in action, I began to put in action in my own life, which is the power of prayer. This widow teaches us tonight that although she knew her situation probably was going to be ignored, she knew that there was a power source in prayer that even this unjust judge had to listen to. And tonight, no matter what you may believe, no matter what brings you here tonight, there is power in prayer. There is something that we know that happens. There is something in that regard. The second thing I want you to see from the text in verse number 3 is the power in voice. In verse number 3, it says, a widow of the city came to him repeatedly saying, "Give me justice in the matter against my enemy." We don't know who the enemy was, but she refused to allow this unjust judge to silence her voice. And you must understand that each of us in here have a voice, but the voice does not matter if the voice is not unified. When we get on the same agenda, with the same purpose and the same goal, guess what happens? That one voice becomes magnified because this woman teaches us that you have to listen to me even when you don't want to see me. This woman refused to allow this unjust judge who has a judicial system on his back. He has the power to be able to tell her no, but she understood, I believe in prayer and I have a voice. And you may ignore me, but I'm going to keep on talking. You can ignore me, but I'm going to keep on talking. Ignore me, but I'm going to keep on talking. Eventually, he says, this woman is wearing me out because she prayed and she kept on talking. Now, ladies and gentlemen, what you say matters. Can I say it again? What you say matters because speaking truth to power is way more powerful than whining. This woman was persistent in prayer, and she was persistent in her voice. And therefore, the third point I want to show you is in verses 4 through 5, which is the power in persistence. What does that mean? When you say no, I'm going to keep coming back. When you ignore me, I'm going to keep coming back. Because if I'm standing for justice and standing for righteousness, I'm standing in the right position. And justice is not black, it's not white, it's not Democratic, it's not Republican, it's not Southwood, it's not Summerbrook, it's not Orange Blossom, it's not Orange Avenue. Justice, where we ought to be standing. The God I believed in justice. I'm here tonight because I believe in justice. There is power in prayer. There is power in voice. There is power in persistency. Let me give you a bonus point. There's also power in people.
All right. That's it.
And you cannot see the result you want to see if the people don't come together. If the people don't lay aside the agenda they came in with and say, you know what, I need to listen, but also commit to working together. Moderator Bernie said, this is how heaven's going to look. Some of you may not believe in heaven, but since I believe in heaven, let me say this. I always say this to people. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said the most sacred hour of the week is 11 o'clock a.m. on a Sunday morning because we all disperse. I'll work with you, but I won't worship with you. But you cannot see justice come to pass if we do not discontinue looking at each other in a different manner. Talk about affordable housing. Talk about gun violence. A gun that is shot is not shot just at black people. There are whites who are also looking for affordable housing. And tonight, we are here because this widow shows us that when the judge said no, she kept coming back until she didn't change her strategy, but he changed his mind. Persistence matters. Your voice matters. Prayer matters. But guess what else matters? We matter. And if we don't realize that we matter, we will continue to forget that there is power in our voices, there is power in our prayers, there is power in our persistency, there's also power in each one of us. Now, if I was at my church, I may be a little bit excited, but some of y'all can't handle it. So I'm going to close this way. I am a Christian. I believe in a powerful God. I understand the audience that I'm in, but I want to tell you a really quick story. There was a grandmother who was raising her grandchildren with limited income. And the grandson, the youngest of the two grandchildren she was raising, really wanted an opportunity to go on a basketball trip, but she didn't have the money. He told his grandmother what was going on, and she said, give me until Friday, and we'll have the money. Tuesday and Wednesday come, nothing has changed. He's being persistent, and she can't give me until Friday. Something's going to happen. He knew that grandmother didn't have a lot of money, but he really wanted to go on this trip. He really wanted an opportunity to go hang out with his friends and advance in basketball skills. And Thursday, he got really anxious, and grandma said, give me till Friday. We'll work out. The grandson got nervous Thursday night. He happened to go to her door, put his ear against the door, and he heard her in there talking. He saw her walk in by herself, so he knew nobody else was in the room with his grandmother but her. But the grandmother was doing Thursday night what she had done Monday night and Tuesday night and Wednesday night and that same night. She was praying to her God who she believed in, saying, God, my grandson really wants to do this. I don't have the money, but I believe that you have the power. Friday morning opens up, and the grandson is now at the breakfast table, and he's asking Grandma, do you have the money? She said, I don't have it yet. When do you need it? He gave her the time. He left off to go to school. He was very disturbed because Grandma didn't have the money. Very disturbed because Friday had come and she promised something was going to happen and it hadn't happened. About 10 o'clock that day at school, he's in class, dribbling on his sheet of paper. Grandma comes in the door with a smile on her face. There's a man standing next to her. He doesn't know who this man is. She asked for her grandson. He stood up and came toward her. She whispered in his ear. He began to cry. The man gave him an envelope and they walked out the room. His friend said, what is that? He said, I don't know what it is. Opened it up and he said, oh my God, my grandmother had the money. He said, who is that man? He said, I don't know who the man is, but I know who that woman is. And she told me, give her till Friday, it'll work itself out. What that young man realized was grandma didn't have the money, but she believed somebody who had the money. And I believe tonight, if we come together, the one that I believe in will make sure that every last one of us in here will see the one thing we want to see, which is justice. God bless you.